These aren't the stories your mother told you. No, these are the other stories.
Today's episode of The Other Stories is The Grinners, written by Isaac Kozokin and narrated by Justin Fife.
Everyone got eaten yesterday, except for me, which is ironic since I was really hoping to get eaten yesterday, and I don't think the people who got eaten wanted to get eaten. Funny how it worked that way. Not that it was a coincidence or anything, just funny. Yesterday was Wednesday, and it was a pretty nice Wednesday, I think. I was at McDonald's in Boston, which is where I'm from. Boston, not the McDonald's. I was sitting at the booth eating lunch. I'd been there since like 1 p.m., and the grinning creatures arrived at 4 p.m. My life was shit. Still is shit, seeing as this was yesterday and things have only gotten worse. My therapist would ask me what was wrong if my therapist hadn't been eaten by interdimensional grin-faced abominations yesterday. I always hated that question, what's wrong? Because most of the time, nothing was wrong. I was just depressed. I suppose nothing is precisely what was bothering me. It's always lingered at the edge of my awareness when I felt all right. But when I'm depressed, it's all I can see, all I can taste, all I can feel. I'm inundated, suffocated, drowned in the thick, heavy nothing of it all. I was eating chicken nuggets and french fries yesterday when the creatures arrived. The food had gone cold hours before because I didn't want to eat. My face was numb. My hands were numb. My eyes could hardly focus. The pain of hunger was the only thing I could concentrate on, and I didn't want to kill that pain. Without the pain, I'd be left with only nothing. I was staring at the wad of ketchup at the corner of my plate, oozing slowly like the cloggy blood that lurched through my veins. I was suicidal, but not actively suicidal. I was just staring at the ketchup and praying to nothing that all my blood would spontaneously congeal into ketchup like goo and I'd die. Nothing refused to grant my wish, and at some point I capitulated to my body's needs. My lizard brain decided that no amount of self-loathing was a good enough excuse to starve, so I dipped the cold, rubbery fries into the red goo and forced myself to eat. I hated the food. I wanted to throw it up. Eventually, I finished my fries. I looked out the window to avoid staring at the sweaty chicken nuggets that remained in front of me. In the parking lot, an empty-headed pigeon was pecking at the white flecks in the pavement as if they were crumbs. A pack of 5 teenagers puffed and preened and strutted by in a dull green Jeep with a battered Clinton cane sticker plastered on its ass. A sweltering April sun bore down on everything outside. The AC inside the McDonald's was frigid. My mouth tasted like ketchup and bile. When the Grinners came, I thought I was having my first ever hallucination. I was glad, because hallucinating seemed like a much more entertaining way for my mind to betray me than the usual malaise. It's hard to describe exactly how they arrived. How do you describe a creature stepping from an alien reality into ours? I suppose I should start with what happened just before. Inside the McDonald's and out in the parking lot, and across the street and up in the sky, everything became tinged with a bilious, nauseous, jaundiced yellow. As far as I could tell, this happened lightning fast. One moment, I was engrossed in the pointless exploits of the empty-headed pigeon, and the next moment, everything looked like it was drowned in piss. I didn't feel much of a change. That was apparently not the case for the other organisms around me. The pigeon ceased its pecking, sat down, closed its eyes, and laid its empty head on the pavement. It looked funny in a sickening way. Then a seagull slammed face first into the side of the Jeep, shattering its skull and spewing orange blood on the teenagers. It fell to the pavement in a heap of black gore and yellow feathers. The teenagers stared at the corpse. One of them collapsed to her knees. She let out a piercing sob and collapsed forward into the dead bird. Her companions put their heads in their hands and lay down and cried and muttered to themselves. Inside the McDonald's, the employees moaned and caterwauled and smashed their foreheads into the ice cream machine. In the street beyond the parking lot, a red sedan lurched over the curb towards the McDonald's. The driver, a weeping man in a well-ironed yellow shirt, floored it at the drive-thru window and blasted through the brick wall into the kitchen. The building shuddered. Steel screamed against steel. A man cried out in ecstatic agony. A moment of dizzy silence passed. And one of the employees began to laugh hysterically. I'm not sure if it was the same one who had screamed or one of his co-workers. Outside, the girl who collapsed by the mangled goal was clutching it like a stuffed animal. Another girl was lying face up on the pavement, tears streaming into her eyes while her nails cut gouges in her palms. A boy next to them was squatting with his face towards me, quietly yanking wads of curly hair from his head and gently placing them in a pile in front of him. He gawked at me, eyes wild, face slack. Inky blood trickled from his scalp into the creases of his forehead. He reminded me of myself when I was a teenager, staring at the oozing cuts on my upper thigh, horrified and gratified by the violence I'd perpetrated on myself. I suppose the yellow haze affected me too, though it made little difference. I thought about slamming my head into the table as hard as I could. I thought about stuffing napkins down my throat until I could no longer breathe. I thought about squeezing packets of spicy buffalo sauce into my eyes. The ambient feeling of suicidality that had been with me all day coalesced into specific, actionable plans. The thing is, I've been dealing with thoughts like that my whole life. I've learned to ignore them, let them wash through me like waves in the ocean. I'm dealing with them now as I write, less than a day after the end of humanity. There are precious few people left on Earth, and all of us are suicidal wrecks. I suppose that most of us will be offing ourselves in the days to come. Is this my suicide note? I don't think so. I feel the need to write down what I saw yesterday because none of it feels real. It feels like an insane nightmare. But I went to my dad's condo this morning, and he was a chewed-up heap of gore. His flesh was intermingled with his favorite green and purple flannel and Adidas sweatpants, baking in the sun in front of his obliterated front door. I called his phone and it vibrated in the grass next to him. If this is a dream, it's a very convincing one. I needed to write this note because the Grinners won't leave me, like a cattle brand on my mind's eye, and yet I can't bring myself to describe them. After I wrote that last paragraph, I took a break to get some fresh air. I ended up watching a solitary vulture gorge itself on the mangled bodies of my neighbors strewn about the street like chewed dip. Today is probably the best day of that vulture's life. Maybe I should start with how the Grinners ate. They shoved people into their huge, grinning mouths, gnashed them between their stumpish teeth, and spit out the bloody mess. Sometimes, they try to swallow someone, only to gag on the corpse and throw it back up with a pitiful groan. Throughout this gruesome process, each grinner kept a plasticky grin on its monstrous purple face. In the 2 hours or so that they were in our world, I think I only saw one or two actually manage to eat someone. They were not fast-moving creatures. They moved slowly, methodically, like underwater dancers in a fish tank version of Earth. They didn't need to be quick, though. The amber aura that preceded their arrival did an excellent job of sedating their victims. Despite the monster's leisurely appearance, they smashed their spindly hands through solid walls like they were papier-mâché. When one set its sights on the McDonald's, it didn't even bother pulling the staff out through the hole left by the red sedan. It just punched its open hand through the back of the restaurant, steady as could be, and plucked someone from their misery. I heard their bones crunch, their body slam into the ground, and then the hand returned. A grinner came to the parking lot. I watched it gnaw on the teens one by one before coughing them up. It took about 20 minutes to get through all 5. It was equal parts horrifying and utterly disgusting. The Grinners were humanoid in form, roughly speaking. They ranged from around 30 to 100 feet tall, though their limbs and digits were proportioned like sticks of bamboo. Their skin looked like indigo candle wax except for some pinkish coloration near their joints and cheeks. The heads were flat and pentagonal, with starkly pointed chins and cheekbones. Their eyes were huge and unblinking, each the size and shape of a car tire. Their lips were black. Their tongues were black. They had no noses or hair or ears. I call them grinners because that was the most unsettling thing about them. They were constantly grinning, even when they vomited up their victims. Their grins were toothy and wide and unmoving. When they first arrived, their teeth were gleaming yellow. By the time they left, each one had its teeth stained black with dozens of people's blood. When the grinner in the parking lot was done with the teenagers, it turned its attention to me. Hunched over like a goblin, it crept towards me, grinning the whole time. It got right up to the window, so close that its breath fogged up the glass. Its face alone must have been 10 feet tall. It stared at me like that for several minutes. Strangely, I began to feel annoyed. I had been hoping against hope that I would die in that McDonald's booth, and here was the answers to my prayers. Hesitating. It occurred to me that the creature's smile was not a happy one. There was a mania in its eyes, yes, but also a sort of nihilistic anguish, an emotion I'd encountered on many a sleepless night in my life. Behind me, the grinner that was attacking the kitchen spat out another victim. Was this whole invasion just an elaborate, cruel ritual of self-harm? Were the monsters attacking us because they couldn't eat us? I thought about my earlier idea to shove napkins down my throat until I choked. The grinner grinned even wider. I must have been an odd find. A human who was just sitting placidly in front of some chicken nuggets and watching the whole world unravel around them, instead of tearing my hair out or weeping or trying to kill myself. I think the grinner saw a reflection of itself in me. I don't know why else it would leave me untouched, only to reach its hand into the auto body shop next door, retrieve a white-haired old man, and chew him like all the others. I wandered around the city for the remainder of the invasion, having similar interactions with at least a dozen other grinners. They seemed to like me, I think. I have made a few friends among the survivors, and all of us were extremely depressed when they arrived. It seems to be the one thing that connects us. I don't know what comes next. I still want to end my life, but I don't think I will. There's nothing to live for now, just like there was before.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Other Stories. The Grinners was written by Isaac Kozakin, narrated by Justin Fife, produced by Georgia Triantafilipoulou, with music by Epic Stock Media and Tom Robson. The sound effect provided by Soundly. The episode illustration was provided by Luke Spoon of Carry On House. Quick thanks to our community managers Jasmine Arch, Joshua Boucher and his eyeless ones, Mary Pastrano and Cody Czarzasty, and to Joshua Boucher for helping with our submission reading. And of course to Ben Erickson for the ongoing explosion of content he fires out of his social media cannon. For more of Isaac Kozakin's work, head to www.inkydepthsfiction.com. Justin Fife is an audiobook narrator and voice actor, and he can be found on Threads at justin.fife. The Other Stories is a production of the Story Studio Hawk and Cleaver, and is brought to you with a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. That means don't change it, don't sell it, but by all means share the hell out of it. Until next time.